Books of the Week back on the air, much to the shock and surprise of everybody. We do a show hopefully once a week out of the Cedarburg Public Library, which is a library in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. All of this is very standard stuff that you all should know by now. We do this show with a man who I grabbed this book on the way in here, and it's called The Incredible Book Eating Boy. And I think that's our critic today. That's Steve Donoghue. Look at that guy go. That's you.
It sometimes feels that way.
I think it's all the preparation. Like if you put the proper noodles or rice with it, they're great. So Steve Donoghue in Boston. Lovely to see you again.
Lovely to see you too. Wonderful to be back on CPL Radio's only book program.
Oh, fighting words. We'll meet you on the softball. We'll meet you on the softball field, sir. We are 3. You are 1. Well, they're actually more like 2. But anyway, what we like to do on this show is kind of give you a guided tour through mostly new releases, I think, although with our wild card, that seems to be it's the wild card. We do a nonfiction and then a fiction book and then whatever Steve brings to the table, which, if you've eaten at this table before, can be very interesting. So what you got for us in the nonfiction world today, Steve?
Well, our trio today is going to involve bloodletting. And unfortunately, the first book is literal bloodletting. It's a great book, but it's on a horrifying subject. It's One Nation Under Guns by Dominic Erdős.
Okay.
And it is a study of what anyone except a lunatic would have to agree is an epidemic in America. An epidemic of guns. An epidemic of gun violence.
The detractors to that theory will say, well, it's just a device like a cell phone. I've heard that.
Yeah, so have I.
In conversation.
So have I. And if you stood a 4 in 10 chance of having your cell phone take out everyone around you at random, they would not be on the market. No one would be advocating for them.
It's an interesting dichotomy there, isn't it?
The only reason this continues is because a large portion of the United States thinks it won't affect me. But rampant, unpredictable gun violence has now made its way into travel advisories in other countries about the United States. They talk about the Grand Canyon and Mount Rushmore, and you really should see the Washington Monument. And oh, by the way, you stand a 2 in 10 chance of not getting out alive.
do that tour with Kevlar.
Yeah,
tourists.
That tour, the American Tourist Bureau I don't know if you saw it, but they brought out a commercial in which young people are meeting at a crowded nightclub to talk about their plans when gunfire erupts in the background. And the camera centers on them as they talk to the audience saying, here's what you need to do to survive this situation.
Oh my. So this is a PR nightmare in theory if you leave the shores of North America.
In addition to every other kind of nightmare. Yeah.
There's
in addition to the fact that there are 700 million guns in this country. The fact that it is easy to buy a gun that no civilian should have. And that bit about civilians is the key to Erdős's book. Because he talks about all the horrifying statistics, but he resists even the larger philosophical justification, I guess you could say, for this whole subject. He goes straight at the Second Amendment, the holy Second Amendment. Huge numbers of openly fascist, better Russian than Democrat, arch right-wing Americans have often said, many of them are on camera saying, I'd rather give up my First Amendment than my Second Amendment.
Wow.
And that's because they think it's holy writ. And Erdős goes after it. And it's easy to go after. The Second Amendment does not use the word own.
So libraries should be doling these out. You have to return this in 2 weeks.
The Constitution was written by lawyers. If they had intended to include the word own, they would have. The Second Amendment is absolutely plain on its face. I have been making the same arguments as Erdős since, I gather, long before he was born.
Yeah.
The Second Amendment is about possessing and maintaining arms in a well-regulated state militia, who's regulated by the state. Obviously, it's right there in the term.
Right, right.
It's for owning guns in a well-regulated state militia. It
Yeah.
doesn't speak or even look at your ability to own those guns in private.
And yet, legally they find a way around that very basic tenet. I mean,
right. And Erdogan's point in this book is that all of those later justifications, which are in state and federal law, all spring from that misreading of the Second Amendment. And he calls it a willful misreading.
yes.
And says, if we don't come to terms with this, we will all die as a result of this. If it's 2 in 10 now, then it'll be 6 in 10 in 10 years.
These type of cancers do tend to grow, don't they?
Well, you could see it. I don't mean to keep referring to Twitter, but Twitter is where you see memes.
3 weeks in a row now, Steve. 3 weeks in a row you brought up Twitter.
Well, Twitter is how I maintain my finger on the pulse of all the Jeff Metzerman memes.
Nope.
Those get quite ugly.
I'm never leaving the house again.
One post that went on Twitter recently was just a list of the places where mass shootings have occurred in America. Just a list of those places. And the point of that's all. The poster didn't add any editorializing, just the list of places where mass shootings have occurred. And the point of the list was to draw home the point that you are not safe anywhere from a mass shooting.
Absolutely.
Especially with one half of America's media ecosystem urging you to shoot people, urging you, get them before they get you.
Right. Yeah.
The point of Erdogan's book is that the reason we're not free, the reason we're not safe anywhere, is because we have layered on one misreading after another of the Second Amendment, and that the Second Amendment is not actually unclear. I agree with that. I don't know what good it will do. You automatically, when a book like this appears, you hope, well, if it's got a message that's valuable for the public to hear, of course, the public doesn't read. I know this is the wrong show to say that, but the public doesn't read.
We have a small cluster of readers here in this building every day, and they're lovely people.
They're lovely people, yes. And I also write for a cluster of people who are readers, but the general public doesn't read. So when you get a book like this, whether it's about vaccine safety or childcare or famously Ralph Nader, automotive safety, what you're hoping for is that the author will get seated next to a bobble-headed bleach blonde on TV, which people do watch.
Sure.
And will be able to give. You're hoping that Bunny will give the author 30 seconds to synopsize his book. Oh, that sounds really interesting. You've got the weather. I'm really chilly.
Well, being Steve Donoghue's Bunny, I have to ask a question.
Wouldn't it be great if we had a regular 5-minute book section at the end of every news broadcast? Wouldn't that be a different country?
It wouldn't even be better if it was you and I doing it, because I smell.
If we went national, oh my God! If we went national, all the actually polished book acts that are out there in the world would commit harikari, or rather, they would harikari us. Imagine if we went national! Wouldn't that be incredible? But when you've got a book like that, you're hoping that Poppy is going to put you on so that you can get your message to the people who want to hear it, but who are never going to read the book. And in this case, that won't happen.
Yeah.
You're not going to get this guy in a studio to talk about how the Second Amendment is perfectly clear. You do not have a right to own an assault rifle.
Right.
And why?
NPR maybe. NPR maybe he'll pop on. That's about it.
Why are networks going to be chary about putting such a person on the air? Because it will result in gunfire. Because it will result in gun threat. You got this guy on your show. He's talking about the Second Amendment. My Second Amendment and me are going to be waiting for you in the parking garage. That's why you won't do it. That shows that he's right.
Are you saying that America's ruled by fear, Steve?
Someday.
That's funny. You heard it here first, folks.
Oh, wouldn't that be awesome? If instead of the FCC constantly trying to shut us down, they mandated us.
Everything Steve's talking about, folks, depends on you. Make this happen. We'll be here waiting.
And we promise we won't forget where we came from. If we're on MSNBC or ABC, we promise that we won't be a single bit more professional than we are right now.
Now, where's Cedarburg again?
I know.
So let's to dial it in for the final bit here. Beyond all the ramifications, it's a good read, is what I'm hearing from you, and it's a necessary read.
It's
and
an angry read, but it's very eloquent. Yes,
Okay.
my only problem is that in America we have become so completely siloed that the people who need to read this will read it. The people who read it will already agree with it.
Right, absolutely.
But the who post pictures of themselves online having gun weddings where they marry their guns, they're not gonna read this. It doesn't matter anyway. But
I want to see the gun wedding night. I think we're a little herky jerky here, but I think Steve got that.
Unfortunately, the bloodletting of Erdogan's book just carries over to our fiction pick.
He's taking the segues away from me here. Go ahead, sir. So we're a little freezy here. I'm gonna hit pause. So here's our fiction pick, which Steve already segued, but we had a little internet thing, sir.
Yes, our fiction pick is not going to sit well with the, I imagine, 1,500 people that are on a waiting list for it at the library.
What is going on with this book, Steve? Oh my Lord, I bought 2. I guess I'll go shopping again.
We're now talking about First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston, which you might not have heard about if not for Reese Witherspoon.
Oh, her again.
Reese Witherspoon has a book club, and it's phenomenally popular. It's cutthroat. She and Oprah Winfrey have been seen with dueling with broken Coca-Cola bottles in the back alley. When Reese Witherspoon picks a book, it tends to do well, and this is shot up the ratings because it's a Reese pick. And
we can take it. Go ahead.
It's a thriller, and it has a wonderful germ of an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Just wonderful. There is a woman in this novel called Evie Porter. That's the name she's going under. She is on a mission to infiltrate the life of a mark, Ryan Sumner. She's been put on this mission by Mr. Smith, who is very anonymous and deals with her, gives her her missions, gives her her identity so that she can study up on who she is for this mission.
Sure.
And the germ of the idea in First Lie Wins is that Evie is on her mission, infiltrating the life of Ryan Sumner and all these other people, when she meets a woman who basically holds out her hand and introduces herself, and the name the woman uses is Evie's real name.
Nice.
And her real background. So this woman who sheds and adopts new identities routinely encounters someone who has adopted her identity. And of course can't say anything.
Nice.
That is a terrific germ.
That is.
And the patient dies before the germ can germinate.
Oh no. Flatline.
The book is awful.
Oh no.
Just awful. And to the 1,000 people waiting at Cedarburg Public Library for this book, I want to say, examine why you're waiting. How do you even know about this book? Why do you want to read it? Isn't it true that at heart you want to read it because you want to be in the club? You want to jump on the bandwagon. You've heard rumors about it, maybe from Reese Witherspoon. And you see those numbers and you want to join them. Isn't that maybe at heart why you're interested in this one make-weight thriller over all the other make-weight thrillers that have been out there? And if that's true, I want to suggest that the only bandwagon you should be caring about is this one. What does Steve say about your book?
Yes.
What you want to be asking. What does Steve say about your book?
They all want to be like Reese, but they should all want to be like you.
Well, they don't.
What I'm hearing.
They don't have to be like me. That would involve several weekly trips to the doctor and the psychologist and the exorcist. Reese doesn't read. I'm sorry if that is a huge revelation, but Reese doesn't read.
Steve!
A staff member who is berated and has ivory-backed hairbrushes thrown at him on a regular basis.
Sounds familiar.
It's terrible dealing with a staff. That staff member cringingly proposes a book, and that's all.
Oh, Miss
That's as far as it
Witherspoon,
goes.
it's a beautiful thriller, I swear.
When we're talking about this thriller, any thriller, really, let's come up with 2 reasons why a thriller like the one I described would fail. You've got an operative. Evie Porter is an operative. So she's right on the edge of danger at all times. Mr. Smith is sending her into perhaps perilous situations under assumed identities where someone could find out who she is.
Yeah.
And then her life wouldn't be worth a plug nickel.
Sure.
And she's our main narrative focal point character. So you're following her throughout the whole book.
Yeah.
It gives those 2 circumstances. What are some deadly things? What things that would be deadly to a thriller? Well, number 1 is that you don't care 2 craps in a pan about Evie. If you don't care 2 craps in a pan about Evie, then you're not going to care whether or not she's in any danger. And 2 would be if she's on the knife edge of revelation, of exposure at any minute, probably the last thing you want her to be is weepy and sentimental.
Oh.
You probably want her to be sneaking into the records room of the country club. But the one place you don't want her to be spending time, much less lots of time, is down memory lane. Hey, remember that old mission I was on? Let me tell you about it. Hey, want to Irish up this drink?
What a strange choice. I didn't see that coming.
Those 2 things rule this book.
Oh.
By the time you get to a third of the way through the book, you won't care whether or not Evie's cover is blown. You will just care whether or not the person who blows her cover has come up with the most painful way for her to die. You're thinking about a silencer, a snub-nosed silencer at the back of her head. I don't know. Could we do better than that? What about 12 drops of sulfuric acid? Could you bolt her to a table and slowly eat away her body? Because I really hate her. So I'd really like it if she died a slow, lingering death. I don't care what her real identity is. I just want her to die.
So La Femme Nikita, she ain't, is what I'm hearing.
There are so many feints along the lines of things like La Femme Nikita. Of course, La Femme Nikita is on the mind frame here. I won't say that it's on Ashley Elson's mind, because I get the strong impression from reading this book, and I shouldn't single it out because I get this impression reading a lot of thrillers with big block letter "me kill now" titles. The impression I get from reading these things is that the authors have never read a book. Not that they haven't read the latest or the best thrillers in the genre they're trying to enter, but that they've never read anything. That even years and years ago, in Ashley Elson's case, 19 years ago, when Mommy was reading her, Mother Goose, I get the impression that the little kid with the chubby little hand put it up on the block book and said, TLDR. Now, I'm saying this now, but CPL Radio's Books of the Week is, of course, going to continue for 20 years.
I mean, minimum.
In 2 years, when we're doing a fiction section about the latest thriller, the version of I get the impression the author has never read a book will be, I don't think a human wrote this.
Oh, dear.
I could easily be saying that now.
Oh, boy. Quick turnaround.
That Ashley, in the back of her book, Ashley Elson has a nice, adorable author bio. But I could, if you showed me proof that this book was written by an algorithm, I wouldn't hesitate at all to believe it. Not at all. There's nothing human about it. There's nothing human about the book. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it was written by an AI, but it easily could have been, and the next 10 will be.
I was going to say, perhaps it was aided by AI, though. It's funny. There's different levels of AI assistance, So.
Oh, AI can be an incredible marvel. I have been petitioning the Cedarburg Public Library to get your ass booted out of the place for quite some time. They say that once they factor in the donuts in the budget, there's no extra money.
I'm not a cheap date.
No. Well, okay. We'll go with that. Don't you worry. The backstage revelations will be present for all the Patreon members down the line.
Stay tuned, folks.
I want to wrap this around to a public service announcement.
Indeed.
Which is that you've got a lot of people. Go ahead, give us the insider dirt. How many people are on the list for this book?
it ramped up so quick. It was funny when I ordered it about a month and a half ago, just sort of as a pre-pub, through Baker and Taylor, that sort of thing. There was like 40 or 50 traditional thriller numbers for CW, because it's a popular genre in this town and in this area. Thriller and mystery. This is the thing. Within like 48 hours, though, it had replicated very 300, 400 at this point, and I couldn't keep up. I couldn't buy enough. So.
Well, when it comes to thrillers like this, I get this around to the readers. I want to ask you why you are so all fired on fire to read this thing. And
I will not be asking that, by the way, of anybody in my library.
When it comes to thrillers that are out there on the market, I want to say to all of those prospective readers exactly what the FCC is saying to them about this broadcast.
Yes.
You can do better. You can do so much better.
Green Acres is on some other channel. You could just
why settle for books of the week?
We'll show up either way.
This is a cold, antiseptic, off-putting, garrulous, weepy, lachrymose, sentimental, overly manipulative, hyper-caffeinated, automated thriller. It is not worth your reading time.
You hit a record. I don't think you've used that many qualifiers ever on this show.
Surely I did.
You were close. No, I think you're one over. I think the digital ticker went up, and it's still
our legendary spare episode. Surely I had that many adjectives. Oh, but not in a row.
No, an Olympian. You are an Olympian.
This has been totally inflated by a celebrity. So I read it, of course, because that makes it important in the book landscape, but it isn't any good. It isn't any good.
You read it.
It isn't any.
You may have eaten it. We don't know.
If this were a by-the-numbers thriller that had a couple of good moments to it, maybe I could justify it, but
sure.
This isn't any good.
I scanned Goodreads today prior to our broadcast because I was really curious. And there's a lot of, even the rave reviews, if you can call them that, they're holding back. It's someone who's like, 4 stars. I may have loved it. It was all over the place, but I figured, I don't know. Maybe go Reese. That's good.
Essentially, I haven't looked at the Goodreads reviews, but I would bet that they all essentially boil down to go Reese.
Yeah. Yes.
And I like her too.
Yeah.
In the movie version of CPL Radio's Book of the Week, she would play you. I think we can all agree that would be an improvement.
People want that to happen by next week, by the way. But
and in this particular episode, the part of Steve would be played by the Predator.
Oh, that Predator. I was thinking the guy with the fangs.
Back to the chopper.
Yes. Oh my. Well, so there we go. We figured out the first lie wins, and it's a strange genre, thriller, and the thriller genre right now. And like you said, big block letters, me kill now, all that kind of stuff. And it's got some popularity in this building, and it'll do well. But I do want to survey my patronage a little bit when it comes back, because I do want to see. I think the question will be, what did you like about it? Because Steve wants to know.
It would be the same as what you saw on Goodreads. I read this because it was all hype, and I didn't get much out of it. And what I'm trying to say here is that now you are forewarned. You readers are forewarned. It is all hype. So don't bother with it.
So head on over to Patreon so we can continue to forward. Not yet. All right, let's move on to, as if the first two were wild cards already. Let's move on to the actual wild card. It's like a game show. We're in the final round here of the $25,000 pyramid. Hit it, Steve.
Yes, this is Filterworld by Kyle Chayka, who wrote a book that just came out in paperback called The Longing for Less. The subtitle of this book is How Algorithms Flattened Culture. And the bulk of the book is an examination of how ubiquitous algorithms are, how much power they have, how much they influence things that you would not think they influence.
Yeah.
And the reason for that, Chayka doesn't go into much detail about it, but the reason for that is very simple, because they are cheaper than a human being. They don't unionize. So if you need someone to figure out the patterns of your traffic lights or your airplanes as they're coming and going on your runway, well, an algorithm isn't going to be sleep deprived. It isn't going to be working on its fourth divorce. It isn't going to be anything like that.
Right.
And so they have infiltrated everywhere, just
Yeah.
everywhere. The author tells the usual familiar nightmare stories about how if you are flat on your back in a hospital bed and the doctor comes around and says what we think, what he probably means is we consulted an algorithm. The hospital paid millions of dollars for a customized medical algorithm. It is the one that gave us the things that I'm telling you now in my white lab coat, not me.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. Hiring, airlines, traffic management on roads, food inspection, so on and so forth, all the way down the line.
Does the book get into like the history of and like where the algorithm tipping point was for us culturally? Okay.
A bit, but this book is, as you can tell from the title, this book is mostly meant to frighten you. And it's meant to frighten you. How to put this?
we have time.
It is, I believe, I don't know the author's motivations, but I believe that it was written to scare you rather than to inform or to instruct you.
Mm.
And it was written by someone who is, what's the euphemistic way to put this? Lying his ass off. Someone who does not believe what he's saying. Now, again, no. I might be wrong about that. But if you're writing a book that is meant to say, this is really scary, thing X is really scary, you should be doing it the way Dominic Erdős is. You should believe it. Yeah. He believes that guns are a cancer on America, a cancer that is eventually going to infect every American.
Absolutely.
And he makes a strong case about that, that you aren't safe no matter where you go. I never, for a moment, got the impression that Kyle Chaika believes that algorithms have flattened culture. Never for an instant did I believe that.
So this boils back to quality of writing, really, is what you're talking about here. I mean, it just sounds like not committed, you know?
I don't know about quality of writing because I don't think it's that he actually believes that algorithms flatten culture, but he writes poorly, so I didn't get that impression. I think he writes as clear as he can, the poor little darling, and that he doesn't believe it. And to be fair, I didn't believe him last time either. His book about longing for less. Well, I finished his book, Longing for Less, with one impression that was so strong, I think I yelled it at my schnauzer. I think I said, your apartment, your house, wherever it is that you finished this book, is full of stuff. It's full of stuff. So don't lecture me in a book about longing for less when you are crowded with things and you've never thrown away anything in 30 years, when you still have the video game that you broke your teeth on. Same thing is true in how algorithms flatten culture. I don't believe that he thinks that algorithms did. I think he just wants to get you worked up. And in this, he joins a fraternity of tech bros who do this sort of thing. If you, I haven't done this, so I can't verify it, but I'd be willing to bet a Boston cream pie that if you go to YouTube and type in the word TED Talk and algorithm, all of the top examples you get, the ones that are or are not by Tristan Harris, all of them will be designed for the same reason, to scare you. And in a TED Talk, you'll be able to see why someone would do that. Because in a TED Talk, you can see the Dorcas Malorcases up on stage getting their dopamine hits in real time by frightening the audience. Right. This author, he's not seeing that until he does a TED Talk himself. I'm sure he has. From this book, I would guarantee he's done a TED Talk. Until he does that, he can't see the audience grasping their white wine coolers. But the book works anyway along those lines. So Filterworld will teach you a lot about algorithms. What I would ask you to do is use your own personal algorithm to strain out the Chicken Little nonsense that runs all throughout it, because otherwise you're going to end up thinking algorithm bad, me scared. You're going to end up, being a prepper and going to but he does know what he's talking about. When it comes to algorithms, he knows what he's talking about. The way he pulls them to frighten you is, at the very least, irresponsible.
And we're resuming, and 3, 2, 1. Go ahead, sir.
Well, that is the ultimate point here, is that you have to read this book with a grain of salt. You have to read it knowing, suspecting anyway. I don't know, so you can't know. But you have to read it suspecting that its main goal is to scare you.
So you wrote this like a Jewish mother, is what you're telling me, because my mother would always say, "Don't go outside; you'll get bugs."
It could still provide you with useful information. It will definitely provide you with useful information about algorithms, which, like it or not, is going to be a subject that affects more of our lives.
If you haven't noticed, by the way, it's full disclosure, we're having some internet issues between Boston and Cedarburg. That's to be expected because Boston regards Cedarburg as a bunch of, I don't know, unwashed swine. So
also, you could keep your donuts in the box instead of on the soundboard. I know you want them as close to you as possible, but they're not going anywhere.
So powdered sugar is bad for tech gear is what I'm hearing. Okay. Well, anyway, it's been a wonderful show. We blew the lid off so many things. I think that for the viewers at home, I think you can find a little theme, a little through line through today's show. And I think Steve did that intentionally, but I would never accuse him of such nefarious things. Anyway, that's Steve Donoghue in Boston, the man who actually, I want a prior video this week, speaking of alarmist, told his 16K viewers now that keeping books in your house is opening the door to a brown recluse spider attack. So, so talk about alarmist. You should do a TED Talk about that.
They're all behind me. They're my biggest fans.
We're going to say goodbye to Steve and his brown recluse fan base. We'll be back next week. He froze again. We're out of here. Have a wonderful reading week. We will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.